Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. On this episode, man, first and what I'm hoping is going to be a series of guides, of hunting and fishing guides. We got Captain Chad Bryson joining us from West Texas. I think that's where you are. You didn't transplant yourself, did you, Chad?
Well, I mean, sort of. I'm kind of transient. Currently, I'm in West Georgia, visiting family before I leave to go to Alaska. But yeah, most of my driver's license says I live in West Texas.
And you're maybe you're kind of like the Apache of days gone by, and you're following the buffalo herds across the plains. Is that kind of what you're doing with the seasons and everything, Chad?
Yeah, sort of like that. My heritage is actually Norse, so I'm a Viking.
There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, no, so I've been super fortunate that I've been able to work this way and just go from place to place as seasons are operating, hunts are operating, fishing's going on. And so I just kind of travel place to place, going to work. And yeah, that's about it.
So you're doing what, every hunter and fisherman talks about every time they're out there. It's like, man, what would it be like? What would it be like to live this way? And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's all glory and easy rolling, feet up by the campfire and things like that. How did you go from lifelong lover of hunting to I want to make this a job, a bit / a business? How'd that happen?
Man, I kind of never really tried to make it a business. It just kind of happened. um and I was like, well, okay, this is way more cool than sitting at a desk in an office and inside somewhere with someone else yelling at me. And so I just kind of kept on doing it. But it started literally when I was in middle school, when I was in 7th grade. If you want to hear about it, but
yes,
please.
Started
Okay.
in middle school. That's all right.
Yeah. So my track coach had a cabin up in, I mean, this is going to sound super hillbilly and delivery, but there was nothing of the sort that happened like that. But anyway, he had a cabin up in the Tellico Mountain.
Wait, let me pause you, Chad. That part didn't come through really clear. What he said is it's going to sound super hillbilly and like Deliverance, the movie, for those of you who didn't know that.
Yeah. But I can assure you, it wasn't hillbilly or anything about Deliverance. It wasn't like that at all. In fact, like nowadays, Coach would never be able to duplicate this. So my family had campers that they kept up in the mountains on the Tellico River. Coach had a cabin down the road from where my family kept their campers. I spent my whole life there in those mountains, in those creeks, and in that river. And so in 7th grade, Coach had made everybody wait until they were in 7th grade. And if you weren't a complete heathen or hoodlum, he would take you fishing. And so since I had been there literally since I was in diapers, I knew my way around really well. And that's kind of how it all started was, we'd drive up, gone are the days of riding in the back of a pickup truck for 2.5 hours from home up into the mountains to go camping. But that's what all of us did. And oddly enough, we survived. But, we did that. And every Friday after school in the spring, we went up there and.
Damn.
Unsurprising, unfortunately. The way he was chopping, might be a.
All right, you're back.
Sorry.
That's all right. Then restart that story. You were 7th grade. Coach finally taking you.
Yeah. So 7th grade, Coach takes, I get old enough that I can go with coach and stay at the cabin and play baseball all night and poker and everything else. And so Saturday mornings, we would wake up and coach would look at me and say, okay, Chad, here's your 4 guys that don't know how to fish. Take them, get limits of fish and bring them back. I'm like, well, and the first time he did that, I was like, really? Well, I don't know about that. And he's like, yeah, you do. Just go ahead and do it. And so that's how it started. And, and it kind of escalated from there. And so just fishing in the main river it became, like teenage boys or young boys are, like fishing in the main river wasn't enough. We had to explore. And so since I knew my way around all the brook trout creeks and the wild trout creeks, I would get him to drop us off at the top, and then I would bring everybody down and he'd pick us up at the bottom. And, I was 12 years old. So that was really kind of when it started.
I'm wondering, did you hustle some of the other middle schoolers and, like, hey, I know where the best spots are. Hey, you guys ain't catching anything. Like, is that where the a little bit more of the entrepreneurial aspect started to come from?
No, I actually didn't. I didn't do any of that. Actually none at all. I mean, I guess if I'd truly been an entrepreneur back then, I would have, but I didn't do it. I was just taking people fishing that didn't know how and, leading them through the wilderness because they didn't know how. And, as I got older and was able to look back on it, what coach was doing, he was taking kids and giving them a mountain experience in Southern Appalachia. And it was kids that probably would have never had the opportunity to experience that otherwise due to whatever circumstances. Either their family wasn't outdoorsy, or, maybe comes from a divorced home, or who knows, whatever the case was, or just simple economics. I mean, their family couldn't afford that kind of stuff, but that's what he was doing. And he was taking those guys and giving them that experience. And I was like, well, you know what? That's pretty cool, because this day and time, he would never get away with it. Especially the cigar smoking and poker playing and riding in the back of the pickup truck when we were in 7th grade. So, but here again, we all survived.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so it just expanded. I mean, there had to have been a point where you said, all right, this is what I can do to put a couple of dollars in the bank, put a roof over my head. How'd that happen?
Yeah, there was a turning point there when it became all about money. And that was when I was a senior in high school. And I wasn't going to graduate on time because I continually ditched my first period class to go fishing. And so
that might be a sign. That might be a sign that you have a future ahead of you.
Yeah. And so I continually ditched my first period class to go fishing. And, and I thought I was being really slick and sly about it. One day I'm standing in the hallway. It'd been pouring rain for like 3 days and I didn't go fishing. I'm standing in the hallway telling my buddies about all these giant trout I'm catching on dry flies. And everybody's super quiet. And I look around, well, there's my first period teacher. And he says, really? So you and I are going to have a little talk. And I was like, oh, great. And, and graduation was supposed to be like a couple of months away. And I was just so ready to not be going to school anymore. I didn't know what in the hell I was going to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do school anymore. And so we go have this little talk in his office. And he says, well, you got 2 choices. Choice number 1 is we can just go ahead to the vice principal's office. He's going to write you up for not coming to school, for lying about where you've been, all this stuff, and you're not going to graduate. And then this time next year, you're going to come back and take this class over and whatever other classes that you're not going to pass. And I said, I'm not doing that, because even if we go to the principal's office, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming back to school. I will quit and I will go get a GED if I feel like it. And he says, well, maybe choice number 2 works better for you. I was like, yeah, I'm all ears. I was pretty full of piss and vinegar back then. And I was like, yeah, sure. Whatever. I mean, whatever you got, talk to me. And he says, well, he said, choice number 2 is you can take me for the weekend, teach me how to fly fish, set up camp, do all these, this outdoor cooking and everything that you talk about doing. And you can teach me how to fly fish, do this for the weekend. And I'm going to wipe this off the books and you get an A+ in my class. And so I said, well, this sounds like a much better program and maybe I'll graduate. And so I did that. And it turned out, I mean, it was all good and fine. And we had a lot of fun. And he learned how to fish and the whole thing. And so at the end of that weekend, I'm breaking down camp, getting everything put away. And he comes over to me. And so this would have been 1989.
Mm-hmm.
So 1989, I was 17 years old, 18 years old. He comes to me at the end of the weekend and he hands me a $100 bill. And I said, what's this? What's this about? He's like, well, I know there's no chance in hell you're ever going to go to college. It's going to be a miracle if you actually get a high school diploma. So you might want to consider figuring out a way to make this your career. And I was like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Cool. I'll take your 100. And as long as I graduate, my parents are off my ass. I don't really care. And that was it. Well, that summer, I spent that summer, fishing and everything. School let out. And about a week after school was out, phone started ringing. And it was other teachers in that county school system that had heard I had taken this teacher and taught him how to fly fish and all this stuff. And so I spent the entire summer doing that with those teachers. And I was like, you know what, maybe he was onto something. And so that was kind of the turning point.
That's hilarious, man. The fact that that's the best work study program I've ever heard,
Yeah. I mean, like no chance I was ever going to do the schoolwork, but not that I think that's a good idea necessarily, but I just know there was no chance I was ever going to do it.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you just brought to mind, picturing, myself actually, after senior year of high school, interacting with a bunch of teachers, whether you're fishing them how to fly fish or not, that doesn't seem like it would be the most fun place for you. And it might be a little bit awkward. And what it brings me back to is thinking about, hunting and fishing and the types of folks that you get in that. And then when I think about hunting and fishing and people who pay for guides, there's a whole other demographic that comes to mind. And I'm curious, I'm trying to think how to even ask this. How do you deal with the people aspect of it? Because to me, hunting and fishing, it's very personal. You're going out with family and your best friends and all this kind of stuff. And these amazing trips, you're spending hours and hours and hours together. Hell, that's where we came up with the idea for the podcast, was up in Wyoming, right? Pronghorn. Like, how do you deal with that when you got, I don't know, some yuppie from Maine that you don't want to be around, I guess is the best way to put it.
I mean, so when I was younger, it was a whole lot harder. I think that's like pretty normal that when you're young, life is kind of hard because you're just a damn idiot. And, but at the end of the day, the people that want to hire a guide for the purposes of learning to hunt or killing some animal or catching a fish or learning to fly fish, the demographic of anyone, no matter where they're from, the demographic of someone that wants to hire a guide is the same. They're exactly the same. Geography changes it a little bit with their culture and attitudes or whatnot, but the demographic is the same. It's a person that has had the balls enough to say, you know what, I don't know how to do this, and I want to know how to do this, and that's it. And it's simple as that. Once you can identify with that, well, then your job just became a whole lot easier. And who cares which way they vote? They're there to pay you for a job that you're doing, and that's it.
And as since they, like you said, they bring that curiosity, that genuine curiosity and desire to learn. as the teacher there, it's pretty hard to be annoyed with the student, no matter who they are, if you don't like them personally, if they come with that genuine curiosity.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I can tell you in over 30 years of doing this, man, there's really only been about 5 people or less. Probably not even 5, probably more like 2 or 3. It's probably been only 2 or 3 people that I would say, you know what, I just wouldn't take them ever again. And so that's out of 3 decades. Yeah. So
that's good. I'll take those odds.
Yeah. No, it's really good. Really good odds. And what I find is that, man, by the time people get to me, wherever I am, they're happy. They're on vacation. They've left they've left their first world behind with all their first world problems and left it all behind. And now they're in the wilderness, they're in the bush, they're wherever it is that they are, that's where they are. And yeah, I mean, man, they're happy, and they're happy about being there, and all the other stuff really kind of doesn't seem to matter.
So how'd you grow from, the teacher network in Georgia to, being a guide in Alaska and even, not just the fishing side, but even picking up hunting and, becoming a hunting guide too?
So the transition came from, one was I unbeknownst to me, you actually had to have a permit issued by the federal government, the United States Forest Service. You actually had to have a permit in order to do guide trips, commercial use, on federal land. It's a pretty big deal. And I didn't know. I was, it doesn't make it okay, but I was just a kid making $100 a weekend, doing the thing. And so, another guide approached me and said, hey, you really need to get a permit if you're going to do this. Well, anyway, I wound up working for that outfitter so that I could be legal. And so that opened me up to other clients outside of that network. And it just kind of grew from there. And, I'd hunted my whole life. I'd hunted and fished. And so back in those days, fishing was an actual season. Like it opened at the end of March and it closed at the 1st of October. And that was the only fishing time that you could do. Whereas now it's year round and there's no closed season. So I was like, well, gosh, you know what? So the first year when I tried to get a job after fishing was over, I tried to get like a regular job, and I don't even remember who it was I was interviewing with. They're like, well, I see on your resume, you've got, you work for this fishing outfitter. And I said, yeah, sure do. They're like, so are you going to go back and do that next year? I said, yeah, like March 21st, I'm going to start work again. And they're like, I'm not hiring you for 5 months. I was like, why? Yep. It never occurred to me that might be a problem for a potential employer to not want to invest, not want to invest 5 months in an employee just for them to quit. So it didn't occur to me. And so the hunting aspect of it came when I was like, well, I got to find something to do to continue to make money. And that just kind of fell in there.
Oh, it's interesting the way things. So here's where I'm going with this. Most people go out searching for who they are and what they are. You just became it and kind of walked that path, and opportunity kept your eyes open, and opportunity, I mean, I wouldn't say fell in your lap, but
no, you can say that. It totally did, and totally happened my entire life.
That's pretty cool. But I'm sure there's been issues and problems in various points, as a guide where, belt had to get it tightened a little bit more. How, tell us about when that happened.
Well, that was when my daughter was born 25 years ago. Consequently, tomorrow she'll be 25. And she graduates college, and I'm super proud of her.
Happy birthday and congratulations.
Yep, she's a good kid. She's never been to jail, and I'm so proud of her. But life's not over yet, though. There's always hope.
Right.
But no, I mean, that was literally when it kind of happened. I was like, okay, well, now I've got more than just me to try and take care of. And, and so I really kind of I kind of transitioned into jobs that maybe they weren't quite as exciting, but they were steady. The risk versus reward deal was a little bit more level. It was like, okay, this is kind of rudimentary hunting, fishing, whatever, but it's steady and it actually pays okay money. I'll do this. And that was what I did. And then as she got older, I was able to go back into a little bit more of the bigger adventure stuff. But hang on, Moses, get down, son. That's my German short-haired pointer. He's very, but that was when, and but what that did was it gave me a better perspective of, well, you know what, is it worth it? Like it was what I'm doing worth the money I'm getting paid when I can go over here and take plan B, which is super steady, and so it just kind of helped me sort through what's really worth it and what's not.
What'd you choose?
In that same vein, sorry. You gave me that look, Dad. No, in that same vein, talking about like identity, it's something we talk about with a lot of, businesses and entrepreneurs that, like you said, Dad, they have to grow into that identity and find it. Yep. I'm curious, was there a point where, because like you said, you already pretty much had that identity, you knew what you loved, and, the business aspect kind of fell in your lap. Was there a point where the business and the hobby were kind of at odds a little bit? What I'm picturing like I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. I don't like that. Like I want to just be out there on my own. I don't want to do the business side. I don't want to worry about freaking taxes and stuff. I just want to go out there and fish. Did you have that kind of an identity crisis? Or crisis might be a strong word, but
well, I mean, yeah. And I think most people in the business do at some point because, I mean, let's face it, if I wanted to make six figures a year, I'd do a different job because you're not going to make, well, I mean, you can, but what it takes to make six figures a year doing the guide / outfitter job, man, it's hard work. And it's a lot of desk time. It's a lot of telephone time. It's a lot of all of the things that I actually suck at. And so like, I'm terrible with that stuff because I'm the guy that runs the boat, that puts the backpack on and goes and does the deal. And that's that. And so there was a point where I said, man, I really need to build this thing into this massive Roman style empire of an outfitter business and have all these guides working for me. Then all I've got to do is answer the phone, keep people booked, collect the money, keep the permits, everything squared away at home. And I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable doing that. And, I think most guides, whether it be fishing or hunting, I think if they're an honest, any form of honest, they would agree with what I'm about to say. Guides in general are a bunch of crying, whining, moaning, bitching dudes that seem to never really be happy, but they are. Huh. But it just becomes that way for whatever reason. And I don't know what. And so, man, like every day I'm listening to these guys come in from these trips and I'm like, well, how was your day? Danny, how was your day? Oh, man, we only caught like 172 that were over 20 inches and just terrible because there was all these other boats on the river. And I'm like, 172 over 20 inches, but you're bitching because there were boats on the river. I don't understand. And guy books a black bear hunt and comes in and, at the end of the hunt, I'm asking the guide, I'm like, well, how was how was it? Tell me about it. What happened? What went right? What went wrong? And he's like, yeah, we stalked, we got 6 stalks and couldn't connect because of whatever. And I'm like, he's a man, it's terrible. Don't sign me up for this ever again. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that it's a problem that you got 6 stalks and you couldn't close the deal, not because your hunter wouldn't shoot, and not because you didn't find animals. You just couldn't close the deal because it's called hunting instead of killing. And you're upset with this. And so like, I just decided that it wasn't worth it. And so I quit, and I just went back to being a guide and a mercenary, if you will. And, whoever needs help whenever they need it, if it works into my calendar and it sounds like something I want to go do, I'll go do it. And if it doesn't, then I don't. And that's that.
There's a lesson there that I think is brought a broader sense. So I really want to, if you don't mind, pick at that a little bit in the sense, because, I went through, I talk about my journey. I remember if I talked with you about it, but, after I retired from the Army and kind of doing that same thing, those jobs I didn't like. And so what I'd really like to know is what were the indicators for you, because you were doing, I'm sure at that point, the money was flowing pretty good. And it sounded like you had some decent guys working for you. So what were the indicators that it weren't, it wasn't the right path, wasn't the right solution?
I wasn't sleeping at night. That was the big one. That's like a telltale for me when I have trouble sleeping at night, because typically I'm a pretty sound sleeper. When I start having trouble sleeping at night, it's time for me to reevaluate things. And so that was the first one, was I wasn't sleeping at night, and I couldn't figure out why. I was just miserable. I wasn't happy about what I was doing. I would go to trade shows, and I'm supposed to be the guy in the little collared shirt with my logo on it, and standing there with a smile on my face and talking to people and be happy that people want to come and give me money to go have a fishing or hunting adventure. And I'm supposed to be that guy standing there smiling, and I wasn't. And I was like, is it worth it? And I was run ragged. I mean, I was just run ragged. They say burning, working both ends from the middle. And I was just run ragged. And I was like, well, you know what? The money's coming in pretty good, not as good as I'd hoped. And I'm kind of a simpleton and don't really require much. So I can live on a pretty meager amount of money and be perfectly happy. And so I chose that.
How does one of the biggest things, thinking about the guy being a guide, just as like a business model, one of the biggest things as I was preparing for the episode that came to mind is how and you kind of already referenced this, Chad, but the guarantee of success is so good for business. Like, you want to be able to say, I will get you this. This is what you will get out of this. The outcome will be this. But like in a lot of businesses that we've talked about, that you don't have control over the outcome. Like you said earlier, Chad, it's still hunting. So how have you balanced that, I guess, from like it makes me want to say like a marketing standpoint, really, but like, how do you balance that when you talk to folks of like, I'm going to get you out there, but you have to kind of lower those expectations because you don't know what's going to happen?
So the guarantee, man, that's a hard one. So I'm probably going to piss some people off when I say this, but that seems to be my nature.
It's a good answer.
If there's an outfitter or a guide service that's guaranteed, that puts it in print that it's guaranteed, there's a reason that they guarantee that. I'm not really going to go into that, but there's a reason. And that reason may be something that you as a potential client want to participate in, and it may not be something you want to participate in order to facilitate that guarantee. So what I did was, because I wasn't willing to do some of the things in order to offer a guarantee, was I was just really honest and open with everything about the hunts, the fishing, and everything, and just laid it all out there and said, you know what, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a good time. You're going to get on animals. You're going to get on fish. I can't kill the animal for you. I can't hook the fish for you. What I'm going to control is everything that I can control, and make that as the very best that I can possibly make it. And man, after that, it's up to you. Like you've got to close the deal. I'm going to set the deal up for you, but you have to close it. And what I found was that when I was honest about that and very, forthcoming, yeah, you know what? A lot of people walked away and didn't book, but the people who did book turned out to be exactly the kind of clients that I wanted. They were in it for the game. They were in it for the hunt. They were in it for the experience. They were in it to try and do things right and ethically. And those turned out to be the people that I wanted. And so, you know what, even there for a couple of years, I kind of took it on the chin a little bit because all these other people were offering this guaranteed whatever. Yeah, when it worked out in the end, suffering through, and I didn't really suffer too bad, but suffering through that couple of years was totally worth it because then all of a sudden I didn't have to explain myself anymore.
Well, I hear a couple of things in there. First off, Camden, it reminds me of our buddy Catherine Contos, the retreat boss, and this lady does. I mean, she organizes retreats. Maybe she ought to do it with hunting camps. I have to talk to her.
There's a nice collaboration.
Yeah. But anyway, one of the things that she's taught Camden and I about retreats is you're 100% right. The experience is what people really want in it. What's the experience? I mean, yeah, I may bag an animal, I may learn something, whatever, those sort of things, but it's that total experience, I think, that really makes the difference. And then the other thing I think this is what's really interesting about that story is because you established your values, you filtered out the people that you didn't want to work with. It's the same thing with our business, drive and purpose. There's a whole lot of people that, I mean, frankly, like you, I don't want to work with. There's a whole list. I can tell you that. And if they call me, I'll be very nice to them and I'll point them in a different direction. I've got
I got a book for you to read instead, right?
Let me give you this book. Yeah, so that's a great lesson in life and business. When you're your own business, man, if you're your own business and you're working with people you don't like, dude.
But the blame is on you. I mean, it's all your fault. If you're working with people, if you're the business and you're working with people you don't want to be working with, that is 100% on you. And you're the only person that has the ability to change that.
So Dad, you left out one other lesson in there that I was pouncing on because you were talking about controlling the outcome. We've had this conversation with a bunch of different businesses. The example that I think we use a bunch is talking about my time with Verbi, delivering it because I was working with outside resource and all this kind of stuff. I couldn't control the outcome that the customer was getting. It was a big problem. And what I love that you've done, Chad, is you don't have control over that outcome. And so you shifted the goalposts. And the outcome is the experience. The outcome is all of that aspects that you can control. And I think that is such a huge business lesson for a lot of different people out there, that if you can't control the outcome that you're trying to, maybe you're looking at the wrong outcome. Maybe that's not, because just like you said, Chad, that's not what the customer wanted anyway. Yeah, they like to, get an animal, but that's not necessarily the only thing they're there for. They're there to be outside. They're there to learn. They're there to get the experience. And so recognizing the outcome that the customer wants and kind of shifting your focus in the business, that is a huge thing that can be a game changer for a business.
Yeah, totally. And I sit back and I watch guys that are new in the game. They're new as guides. They're working good. They're doing a good job, but they're still new. And they're like, oh man. And I just watch them and they're making those same mistakes, and you try and tell people, but also at the same time, I mean, guides are a pretty independent bunch. And so they're not really willing to take a whole lot of outside input. Most of the time, they're just not willing to do so because all of us have, and myself included, I have my program. My program and procedure works. And so as long as I follow my program, then everything's going to work out great. And for someone to jump in and try and change that or give me advice about how to change my program, it's not really too welcomed. So it's a hard thing. And so I just have to sit back and watch those guys and let them sort through it and figure it out on their own. But yeah, you're right. After I started doing that, man, my life got pretty easy. Pretty easy.
I gotta ask the fun question. It's the first thing that came to mind for this, but I couldn't do it all podcast because we'd just be swapping hunting stories. What's your best hunt, best location, best story? Give me whatever comes to mind.
Man, I don't know. I've been so lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it. I don't really believe in luck, but it is a term that people use. I like to moose hunt. So that's really what I groove on. I mean, I'll hunt anything that's legal, but I really enjoy a moose hunt. And I've all the years I've worked in Alaska, one particular lodge, and it's the lodge I've come back to work at now again. The moose hunting on that river is just incredible. And so I've had so many good moose hunts through that lodge and on that river system. It'd be hard for me to just narrow one down. Recently, the Aoudad sheep hunting in West Texas, or Barbary sheep, in the Davis Mountains on the border of Mexico. That's pretty special as well, just because it's a part of the country that nobody really thinks about too much. And when they do think about it, they just think of Texas as either high fence game ranches or flat desert. And it is flat desert until you get almost to the border, and then, man, the mountains shoot straight up, and it's hard and it's treacherous, and those sheep are pretty tough to kill with a bow. But there's been a lot of those hunts that have been memorable as well. Man, I don't know. I can't narrow it down.
Well, no, that was a good answer. My one follow-up on it is, what about the moose hunts stands them apart? Is it because obviously, talking about being in Alaska, that sets them apart already. Talk about how big the animal is, that sets it apart. So what is it for you, or maybe a combination thereof, that makes those hunts so special?
They're hard. They're hard. I mean, moose aren't necessarily particularly hard to kill. Once you find one, the finding one, and then so finding a moose is kind of hard. I mean, 2,000-pound animal, you would think they would just stick out like a sore thumb, and sometimes they but finding a moose is step one. That can be difficult. Step two is finding a moose that you can actually kill. And so no matter if you're using a rifle or a bow or whatever your method is, it's finding an animal that you can kill, that's feasible, that you can make it happen. And then after you get it done, then you got to deal with the bears. And and get it done. So here you are, you've killed an 1,800-pound animal, and in an area that's got, who knows how many brown bears that are, they've transitioned off of salmon because the salmon have all spawned and died. Well, now they're just looking for whatever free food they can find to make them, to get them through to late October, early November, so that they can go hibernate. And here you are, you just killed their first favorite meal. And the wind's blowing and it stinks, it smells like moose in the air and all of those things. And so you got to hurry and get your deal done, in order to get it done right. And so it's hard. It's just really super hard. This year I'm going to try and do it with a recurve bow. I've never killed one with a bow. And so this year I'm going to try and do it with a recurve.
Man, I'm getting jealous. I hunted moose, rifle and archery when I lived in Alaska 30 years ago. It makes me want to go back. I'm gonna have to call you, man.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to plug hunts or anything, but the lodge that they offer a do-it-yourself hunt. Because in Alaska, the moose is something that you don't have to hire a guide or an outfitter in order to hunt. You can do a do-it-yourself moose hunt. But gosh, man, it's just so expensive. If I had to pay out of pocket to do it, I'd probably never be able to afford to. As it stands, because I'm already there, all I got to do is buy a license and an over-the-counter tag, and then I'm all set. And I just put a backpack on and start walking, and and that's that. But yeah, so it's a little different for me, and I guess that's part of why it's so special, is because I know damn well that if I was the guy that had to shell out 15 grand to go kill one, I'd probably not do it.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, I want to take a little future glance for us. And what is next for guiding? What's next for you in the guide business? You know, kind of take a little future peek for us.
Man, I try to not take those, just because it can go one of two ways. It can be either really demoralizing, or it can be, you know, pretty rewarding. So I'm 50 now, and I still go fine. I've had my share of injuries over the past 5 or 6 years, but I can still go fine. I can still put a pack on and climb and haul, and you know, I can still run jet boats just fine. Like I haven't lost any of it necessarily. I'm not quite as fast as I used to be, but I can also see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I've already started that process of kind of, you know, I don't do the 20-mile a day hikes anymore. You know, I try and not do those. And I don't do hikes every single day anymore. You know, most of my time guiding is in a jet boat and drive up to a spot, toss the anchor, get out, do your fishing, get back in the boat, go somewhere else, as opposed to, you know, for years I got in a float plane every single day and got dropped off somewhere in the middle of nowhere with an airplane load of people, and had to find my way to the pickup spot, which may be 8 miles, it may be 12, it could be 20. So I used to do that every single day, and I don't do those anymore. I kind of do the low key stuff. And with the hunting, I mean, you know, man, I'll do the moose hunt in Alaska. And then by the time I'm done there, I'm going to feel pretty good about getting in a tree stand and looking at whitetails come by and eating a bag of Fig Newtons while I'm sitting there doing it. That's pretty good for me these days. But as far as the next phase of it, man, I don't know. I can't imagine me doing anything different, really. I feel like if I just kind of keep modifying the way that I guide as I get, I'll be able to do it for another 20 years, maybe. That's my plan. I don't know how solid that is, but that's my plan. I don't have any aspirations of owning an outfitter business or anything of the sort. I don't want to own a lodge. I don't want the headache. I don't want the responsibility. I just want to be the old guy that shows up, does a good job, and goes home.
Let me ask you this. Take it a step out of the personal and in the industry. Do you see anything changing as far as guiding? You know, is it still going to be the same old thing? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but you know, the one to a group, 1-to-1, or is there something going on that in 10, 15 years, you know, we'll have a drone or whatever that does the guiding?
The guide industry is changing without a doubt. It definitely is changing. There's a lot of tools that we have available to us as guides now that we didn't have even 10 years ago, much less 20 and 30 years ago. So it definitely is changing for sure. As far as taking that personal aspect of it out, I don't see that happening, because there's too many decisions. There's too many, you know, game day decisions that have to be made right then. And a computer can't make those decisions, or artificial intelligence can't make those decisions. And those decisions are made based off of human experience. And I don't really, maybe I'm just an old guy, but an old crusty, if you will, but I just don't see taking those decisions away from a person who has that experience in order to make those decisions.
My mind just went to an episode a few weeks ago. We're talking changes in the medical field, talking about telehealth. My mind is just picturing like a UTV with a little robot thing sticking up on. You got the iPad on there, like you got the hospitals. You're driving around. It's like, yeah, no, I think I see one out there. Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna work the same.
No, it's not. And thank goodness it's not going to work the same. But yeah, I don't see that. The only thing that, there's always going to be a freshman class of guides, and there has to be. There has to be a freshman class of guides. The only thing I see now with the freshman class of guides is that, man, some of them are not getting the mentorship that they need to be getting, and that's too bad. But there's a lot of them that are. There's a lot of them that are getting good mentorship, but there's also an equal amount that are not getting what they need as far as, education and, ethics training and all of that stuff. And I mean, God, we could have an entire podcast on just this subject alone, probably, but that responsibility falls in a lot of different places, and they're just not getting it. And that's too bad, because there's a lot of good kids that could probably be trained up on how to do a really good job if they had that leadership and that mentorship, but they're not getting it. So there you go.
I had heard something really similar a little bit ago, some other podcast, but they're talking about I don't remember who it was, but some B-list, C-list celebrity that was basically going crazy. And what they were talking about, I thought was a really interesting thing, was like, this is a young guy who has all this money, and he's 20, he just turned 24 and has millions of dollars. And now he's trying to figure out what the meaning of life is. And he's out there reaching out for all these things, and he's not finding good sources. And it reminds me a lot of what you're saying, that it's like, there's so much good info out there, but if you latch onto the wrong stuff, it can get bad fast. And it's all, like you said, there's a lot of different, methods for fixing it. But, I think that's where, going back to one of our favorite episodes with Big Brothers Big Sisters, David Simpson, it's the mentorship cycle, getting out there and helping the young people, then the young people helping the next generation, and trying to get something like that going, whatever community it is. Because the reason I mention that is because I think that's something that's not specific to any one category. I think that all sorts of young folks from 15 to 25 are going to reach that point where they're looking for something, whether it's ethically, like you're talking about, spiritually, philosophically, whatever it is, that you have to, they need some sort of lesson on it. And so I think it's an important thing to think about, whatever industry you're in, to either be the one or get some other folks to do it too, but be the one to help teach those lessons, so guys don't steal it, or guys and gals don't take it from the wrong area. Yeah.
Yeah. And, gosh, I'd be a liar if I said I didn't fall victim to my own devices at one point in my career. But, now with social media, the pressure as a guide, whether it be fishing or hunting, or I don't care if it's butterfly viewing. I mean, the pressure as a guide that you're under in order to succeed, you're only as good as your last big fish, your last big animal, your last art butterfly, whatever your situation is. You're only as good as the last one. And, and the world sees it, they totally see it. The entire world does. And so there's all this pressure to falsify that, just so that it looks like you're keeping up and it looks like you're doing a good job, even if, man, maybe you're in a slump. I mean, maybe fishing and hunting isn't good in your area for right now. Doesn't mean that it won't always be. Doesn't mean it'll always be that way. But maybe right now it's not working out, but you have this pressure in order to fulfill it. And so what I see a lot of people doing is they just straight up lie about it. I mean, they're saying fly fishing, and they'll go out there and drift some bait to catch whatever fish that they need to catch, which, listen, I'm not opposed to drifting bait, but I'm going to tell you I drifted bait because that's what I had to do in order to get it done. And I'm going to tell you that that's what I had to do. But they'll drift bait to promote fly fishing trips. And then they get fly fishing bookings, and it doesn't produce. And I'm like, well, you know what? There you go. I mean, that's what you so but that's the big thing is like social media can be super helpful or it can be super hurtful. And I see it being literally a 50-50 right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what goes around comes around, right?
I was gonna say, don't jump down that rabbit hole, Dad. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
I saw that look on your face.
Well, I know, yeah. My transition is not here today. This because there's so many, like you said earlier, Cameron. I want to talk hunting and fishing stories, but Chad, this has been great, man. And you know what, my lesson is that, and what I learned is that your values are the most important thing.
100%. That's all you, as a guide, no matter if you're a fishing guide, hunting guide, whatever, all you have that's worth anything is your word, your abilities, and your client list.
Yeah.
That's all you have of any value. Now, you take those three things and go to a bank and try and borrow money on that, they're going to laugh at it. But that's truly all you have is your reputation in the business. And if your reputation is that you guarantee things to happen, well, then that's your reputation. And if your reputation in the industry is that, you know what, you do things how you're supposed to do them, well, then that's going to be your reputation too. So that's it. It's all you got.
Yeah. Yeah. Camden, what'd you learn?
Going back earlier part of the episode, how important it is to understand your customer, not make assumptions on them. Like the assumption I made when I asked the question, frankly, about, the customer and what they're there for, and really taking the time to understand the outcome that they want, not the outcome you think they want. Because if you're selling them the wrong thing, then you ain't going to be in business too long.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. How about you, man? What'd you learn?
Man, I guess I learned that I enjoy talking about the past. No, I'm just kidding. It's been really good. Like I appreciate the ability or the opportunity to share, so that maybe some guide somewhere that's like sitting around twiddling his or her thumbs, trying to, knowing that things aren't going the way that they want them to go, but doesn't really know how to fix it, or doesn't know what direction to go in next. That's important. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share that.
That's awesome. How do folks get in touch with you, hire you, link up with you in Alaska or down in the Davis Mountains? What's the best way?
Man, I don't know. I'm kind of off grid. My Instagram handle is Captain Chad Bryson, CAPT, Chad Bryson, B as in boy, RYSON. That's probably the easiest way. I have a website. It's CaptainChadBryson.com. It's I created that website so that I could write blog posts whenever I had a thought, because I do write stories, various things for different magazines and whatnot. And so I created that website so that I could just put blog posts in whenever I had a thought that I wanted to write about. And as of yet, I have failed miserably to write a blog post. But the website is there. It's really complicated. It's a page, and at the bottom of it, there's a contact me. So you could do that if you wanted to. I will say I'm a one-man show, and a lot of the time I live somewhere where there's no service, no cell service, no Wi-Fi. So if you email me or message me and I don't get back to you right away, just know that I am not living with first world problems. But I will, everybody that messages me, I get back to them 100%.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you carving out some time today to share with us. This has been great. A lot of fun too. Camden,
Well, I appreciate it. I had a good time.
Yeah. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show. And a special thanks to our guest, Captain Chad Bryson, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook. And please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Videos of the podcast are on our YouTube page, and you can always get a full archive of the episodes at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.